Hi, everybody, and welcome to Echo Live. My name is Anna, and today we have another very exciting program planned for you in our virtual planetarium. But before we get to today's program, I would really like if we could do a brief recap because we started an experiment yesterday on Echo Live, and now it's a really exciting time. We are going to get to check on the results of that experiment. So if you were here for yesterday's episode of Echo Live, we talked about crystals. We took a look at some of my crystals, like I have over here on this side of the desk in my crystal collection. We talked about how crystals are formed, what gives them their different shapes and colors. And then most excitingly, we learned how we could grow our own crystals at home from borax, which is that same kind of powdered cleaner that we normally would use in our slime making classes at the Science Center. So let's take a look at our crystal growing experiment. And I have some kind of mixed results to share with you, but I thought it was important to show you the full results of my experiment and not just show you the ones that worked really, really well. So if we take a look down here at my tray, I've got a couple different crystals here. So here's the crystal growing experiment we set up yesterday. So what we did is we created a super saturated solution of borax, meaning that there was so much borax in this solution that the water couldn't dissolve any more borax. And that allowed us to create nucleation sites on our pipe cleaner wad. Now, here's the tricky part. I made my nest of pipe cleaners yesterday a little too wide. I forgot that once they entered the water, they might expand just a little bit. And that actually made them too wide for me to actually remove them from the mason jar that I set them down in. So you can see that if I try to lift my pipe cleaner crystals out of the jar, they're actually stuck. And so unfortunately, it seems like the only way I'm going to get this crystal out of the jar is if I break it or try to cut it into a few different pieces. But I wanted to show you this just in case you tried this at home and had the same thing happen. If you haven't yet tried this experiment, make sure that you make your pipe cleaners, your nucleation site where your crystals are going to grow, make sure that you make them skinnier than the opening of your glass, or use a glass that doesn't kind of bend inward like this mason jar does. Choose something that has straight up and down walls, and then you should not have to run into the same problem that I am. But I did make a few more because I thought I would want to have a few to show you anyway. And it's a good thing I did because this one didn't work quite so well. But let's take a look at the other ones that I grew. So you can see that I made some other nests of pipe cleaners here. And I got really, really good results. They're a little brittle, especially these ones I just took out of the water this morning. And so they might have some kind of spare crystals on them. If you shake them around a little bit, kind of gently, all that kind of stray borax will fall off and you'll be left with your crystal that you grew by creating that super saturated borax solution. So what we can do is we can actually take our pipe cleaner on top, the one that attached it into our water, and we can trim it off. And then we're left with what looks like one of these geodes. So we can even compare it with a different geode. You can see they're very similar in shape and structure. Remember that I did not dye my borax solution, so I kept it white yesterday. And then I used colored pipe cleaners. You can see I used a blue one in this one. There is a purple pipe cleaner inside this crystal, but they were a really great way for us to practice growing crystals on our own. But with any experiment, right, it might take you a couple tries to get really good results. I hope that you do try this on your own. If you do grow crystals, send us pictures of them because I would love to see them. You know me, I love rocks. And I'd love to see that you guys are trying some of these Echo Live experiments at your own homes with your own materials and own experiments. Awesome. All right, so now that I've chewed up a few minutes of our episode today, of course, as always, for our virtual planetarium programs, we are joined today by our staff astronomer and solar system ambassador, Paulette. Paulette is here to talk to us about our last 2 planets in our solar system, which we've been doing over the last few weeks. So with that, I will let Paulette take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Anna. So like she said, we're going to be talking today about the last 2 planets in our solar system. So far, we've talked about Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and we have 2 planets left. So remember, the chat feature is the best way to answer any questions during the program or to ask me questions during the program as well. So whatever platform you're on, whether it is Zoom, Facebook Live, or YouTube, feel free to put any questions into the chat during the program and answer any of my questions there as well. So we have 2 planets left, like I mentioned. What are those 2 planets that we have left to see? So we've been able to see, like I said, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. What are the 2 planets that are left for us to explore? So we have a couple of answers coming in. Yeah, that's right. Uranus and Neptune. Those are the 2 planets that we have left to explore. So we're going to hop into our virtual planetarium today. Anna, if you could let me screen share, we're going to hop into our virtual planetarium today in just a moment. And we're going to be able to check out what those planets look like. So again, we're using a free program called OpenSpace to be able to explore our solar system. So this is a free program, but it does take a lot of horsepower. So you need a very powerful computer to be able to use it at home. And so I do apologize if there's any sort of jitteriness when we're flying to things, because like I said, it does take a lot of horsepower. So we're going to start by going to the planet Uranus. And we're gonna fly up to the planet Uranus, and you can see that Uranus actually has quite a few moons orbiting around it. Now, we talked about Jupiter and Saturn last week having a ton of moons. Does anyone know how many moons does Uranus have? Does anybody have a good guess? As we sort of fly into our planet, how many moons does Uranus have? It looks like a lot less than some the other planets that we were talking about, Jupiter and Saturn. We have a couple of guesses coming in. How many moons do we think Uranus has? Let's see. We've got some answers coming in. Someone said 13. That's a really fantastic guess. And someone else said 27. And that is the correct answer. Uranus has 27 moons orbiting around it. So now we can see Uranus right here. And Uranus is a very interesting planet. Not really because it has very much happening on the surface of it, but because it's sort of this weird bluish color. Now, yesterday on Echo Live, we talked about those crystals like amethyst are different colors because of different things that they have inside of them, so different impurities. And the same thing is true with the planets, or at least our gas giants. So Uranus is made mostly out of water vapor, methane, and ammonia. Those 3 gases give us this sort of bluish greenish color that we have. Now, Uranus also has rings around it. So we talked about Saturn having rings. Jupiter also has rings. Uranus and Neptune have rings as well. So if we take a look at our other screen right over here, you're actually going to be able to see the rings around Uranus. Now, unfortunately, we can't see those in the program that we have. So this is actually an image taken. And we can see those really dark rings around it. So these rings are very hard for us to see from the Earth. It takes a really, really powerful telescope. We have to block out the light from the other planet or from the planet itself. And we sometimes have to look at different wavelengths of light as well. So here we have Uranus. Somebody said that they thought it was 82 moons, and that is a really good guess because Saturn and Jupiter have so many moons orbiting around them. But Uranus is a lot smaller, and so that's why there's far fewer moons orbiting around it. Somebody mentioned that Uranus has 2 sets of rings, and that is true. It actually has more than that, but the 2 main ones are the ones that we're able to see. So the really neat thing about Uranus is the fact that it's actually tipped over on its side. So as it orbits around the sun, it's actually sort of tipped over. The Earth is tipped slightly at 23.5 degrees. But Uranus, the tilt is much, much more than it is on the Earth. It's tilted at about 89 degrees. So all the way over on its side. Uranus is sometimes the butt of people's jokes, but I like to think of Uranus as such a fantastic planet to take a look at. So when we actually view Uranus from the Earth, we're viewing the side of it, or the bottom and top of it instead of the sides because it's tipped over on its side. Let's see. So Uranus, like I said, doesn't really have many features on the surface of it. It's actually fairly smooth and doesn't have a lot going on in the gas. But the next planet that we're going to head to, which is Neptune, actually has a lot more going on. So let's go ahead and fly to Neptune and let's take a look. So as we fly out there, how many moons do you think Neptune has as we approach it? We can see that it's even fewer than Uranus. Somebody asked if you land on Uranus, will you fall over? And there isn't actually a solid surface on Uranus. There's sort of this gaseous area. And it doesn't really, like I said, have a solid surface. So you probably wouldn't fall over. Like I said, it's tilted over on it onto its side. Somebody said why is it only greenish on one side? And it's greenish depending on where that gas is concentrated. And so the gas tends to concentrate a little more at the poles, which is why we see that. Now, we're flying up on Neptune, and we have a couple of guesses in our comments with how many moons it has. Somebody said 5. Very good guess. It is fewer. Someone said 13, 17, 16, all fantastic guesses. But Michael has it right. It's 14 moons orbiting around Neptune. Now, Neptune has a little more going on in its atmosphere. When we talked about Jupiter, we talked about the fact that there are storms on the surface of some of these gas giants. And Neptune is not any different. If we turn around, and I go ahead and turn off our shading here, we'll actually be able to see a giant dark spot on Neptune. What do you think we call that giant dark spot? Remember, the giant red spot on Jupiter was called the Great Red Spot. So what do you think we call this giant dark spot on Neptune? What do you think we call it? Again, we're not super creative when we name things. It is the Great Dark Spot. So just like we had the giant red spot, the Great Red Spot on Jupiter, we have the Great Dark Spot on Neptune. Now, Neptune is also made mostly out of water, ammonia, and methane. But is Neptune the same color as Uranus? So they're both made out of the same things. Why do we think they might be different colors? They're both made out of the same things. They're different colors, though. We have a lot of people, yes, talking about how that Great Dark Spot is a giant storm or hurricane on the surface of Neptune, just like the Great Red Spot was on Jupiter. You can see that it takes up a lot more space, but it's because Neptune is much, much smaller. Neptune also has very strange weather, yes, like somebody said. So why do you think that these two planets are two different colors? One of them is sort of a greenish color, and the other one sort of this darker bluish color. Why might they be different colors when they are made out of the same thing? And somebody said that it's warmer on Uranus, and that's true because Uranus is closer to the sun, but not really that much warmer. why do we think because they're made out of the same thing, they might be different colors? And it turns out because they're made up of different percentages of each of those different gases. So on Uranus, there's more methane than there is ammonia. But on Neptune, there's more ammonia than there is methane. So we see them as different colors because there's different percentages of each of those gases in the atmosphere. Now, somebody asked me, how are there hurricanes and storms in space if there's no weather? And that is true that there is no weather in the vacuum of space that we have. But on the planets themselves, because they have an atmosphere, there is actually weather that happens inside of those atmospheres on each of those planets. So all of the outer planets have a lot of weather going on and a lot of storms that happen. And so someone has said, does Neptune not have rings? Well, it does. So if we take a look at Neptune through a very powerful telescope from the Earth, we're actually able to see this right here. So Neptune does have rings. We actually have to, from the Earth, block out the light from the planet itself so that we can see the rings around the planet. So it is very, very tricky for us to see those rings around Neptune, but we have to be very clever about how we see them by blocking out the light from the planet itself. So here we have the rings around. This one is Neptune. Now, you might wonder, how do we know so much about these outer planets? If telescopes from the Earth haven't really been able to study them very well because they're so far away and they're so hard for us to really understand, how have we been able to study these outer planets and know exactly what they look like? Well, it's because of things that we've sent into space. So one of those things that we have sent into space, well, two actually, were Voyager spacecrafts. So Voyager 1 and 2 were launched in the 1970s. Voyager 2 was launched first, and that one was launched in August of 77. And Voyager 1 was launched second. I know it doesn't quite make sense, but Voyager 1's the faster spacecraft. Voyager 1 was launched in September of 1977. So these spacecraft were able to study the outer planets and send back information. So let's go ahead and explore these spacecraft a little more. We're going to focus today on just one of them, and mostly because it is very, very far to travel to each of them. So we're going to zoom in on our Voyager spacecraft. Now, somebody said, somebody asked me while we're flying out there, does Neptune have a sea under the surface? And the answer is probably not. We don't think that there is a surface or a solid surface on Neptune. It's probably mostly gas or sludgy stuff on the way through. So it does not have an ocean on it. But it's a really great question, especially because Neptune was the Roman god of the ocean. Somebody else asked, how were the rings formed? And just like the rings around Jupiter and Saturn, they were formed by objects in the solar system getting a little too close and being pulled in and torn apart by the gravity from those planets. So the rings around Uranus and Neptune are really, really dark because they're made out of these really teeny tiny little particles that are sort of orbiting around the planet. So that gas and those particles were pulled into the orbit of the planet and are rotating around it. We have one more question. Can we walk on Uranus? And the answer is Unfortunately not. So again, these gas giants don't have a solid surface, so we wouldn't be able to walk on them. But if we did go down to the surface, we would, or sorry, the middle of it, we would actually probably see sort of an icy or slushy core of material inside of them. So again, the gas giants unfortunately don't have a solid core, don't have solid surfaces for us to be able to stand on. So we're headed to our Voyager spacecraft. So like I said, this Voyager spacecraft was launched in, this one in particular was launched in August 1977. And that spacecraft is still out there today because there's really no way for us to get it back home. So here we have that Voyager spacecraft, and we can see a very large antenna, and that antenna allows us to speak to the Voyager spacecraft even still. So it is now 2020, and we can still talk to this Voyager spacecraft. It does take a while for us to travel, for the information to travel back and forth, because these spacecraft now are at the very edge of our solar system. The Voyager 1 spacecraft is over 13 billion miles away from the planet Earth, and the Voyager 2 is over 11 billion miles away. Sorry about that. So these spacecraft are now reaching the edge of our solar system, and we're going to find out a lot from these spacecraft in the years to come as they approach that area. Somebody said, how far does outer space go? And the answer to that is a really, really, really long way. So the edge of our universe is about 13-ish billion light years away from us. And the closest star to our own is only 4 light years away. So the edge of the universe is really, really far away from us. And so it's very difficult for us to sort of study the edge of space without something like a telescope. These spacecraft have been flying for a very long time, since the 1970s, and they still haven't reached the end of our solar system. All right, so, oh, thank you for the bless you. As we orbit around Voyager, we're actually going to see a really interesting feature on the surface of this spacecraft. Now, in the 1970s, we decided, as we sent these spacecraft out into space, because these are going to keep traveling and traveling and traveling until either they hit something or something else finds them. So we sent these spacecraft out with this right here. This is the golden record. On this golden record, we sent a lot of different things. We sent audio files out there. And by audio files, I mean actual like etching on the record. So for kids at home, if you don't know what a record is, ask your parents, and they might be able to show you one if they have a collection. I know I've got some friends that have a large collection of records, or you might be able to see one online. But a record is basically like a way to play audio from before there were CDs, before there were computers. So they put this record on the spacecraft, this golden record, with audio, with images, and with a way to find where we are on the Earth. So if anything at any point finds these records or these spacecraft, they should be able to find us on the Earth along with some greetings. So on this record, there are some greetings. So I'm going to go ahead and share my other screen with you. And we're going to listen to just a little bit of what it sent.
Silema Chemen. Oiknis poteste chairete. Eirenikos pros philos eleluthamen philoi.
Paz e felicidade a todos.
各位好嗎？祝各位平安、健康、快樂。
Adanishlu shulmu.
Здравствуйте, приветствую вас.
สวัสดีค่ะสหายนายธรณีพลพวกเราในธรณีนี้ขอส่งมิตรจิตมาถึงท่านทุกคน
تحياتنا للأصدقاء في النجوم يا ليت يجمعنا الزمان.
Salutări la toată lumea.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Maelakmia.
Shalom. Hola y saludos a todos.
So as you can see, this Voyager record was sent with greetings in 55 different languages. So this itself is about 5 minutes long, just the greetings part of it. But you can find the whole record on YouTube, and it's like 5 hours, over 5 hours long. So there's a lot of music and really cool things on this record if you want to check it out. But part of the reason that we sent all of these people talking is because we wanted to let any alien species that might be out there, we still don't know if there's aliens, but any alien species that might be out there, we wanted to let them know that the Earth is a safe place and it's filled with lots of awesome and diverse people, and we all support each other. So the Voyager record was sent out, like I said, when the spacecraft was launched, and we were actually able to see something. Sorry about that. We were able to see something that we call the pale blue dot. Now, somebody asked a really, really interesting question. How do they understand what might be on this record? There's actually in binary code. So for those of you that have been watching Echo Live with us, you know binary. They've actually put in binary code along the outside how to play the record. Now, do they understand binary code? We don't know. But we wanted to give them as much information as we possibly could to potentially bring these, or to show these aliens that we bring peace, and to show these aliens that where we are on the Earth. Somebody said aliens are not real, and you know, we don't know if aliens are real or not, but we thought just in case, just in case we would send this golden record out there. So someone asked what languages these are. These are 55 different languages that are on the record. So those 55 different languages are telling them hello, and they're telling them we're from the Earth, and they're telling them that we come in peace. So when the Voyager spacecraft actually got to Saturn, it looked back and took a really, really interesting image. So I want to show a couple more things. This is something that we call the pale blue dot. So this was taken from the Voyager spacecraft in the rings of Saturn, and right there, that's the Earth. That's us. Everyone that has lived or will live on the Earth is within that tiny little dot up in our sky. So when we are able to look at the Earth from these different perspectives, so we've talked about our perspective of the Earth from the moon and the Earth from Saturn. When we're able to see the Earth in these different perspectives, we can all understand that we're all on one planet and we should all take care of each other. So actually seeing the image of the moon around the Earth around the moon was actually what prompted us to want to take care of the planet, and which is what prompted us to want to start something like Earth Day. Sorry about my roommate there. So we have the pale blue dot right there, and that's the Earth, and that's us from the moon. So does anybody have any questions from our program today?
Unmuted. If you have any questions before we wrap for the day for Paulette about our last two planets or about Voyager or about the pale blue dot, which was really cool, a picture to see, type those in the chat. Of course, these programs, we are very thankful to our sponsors like the Ford Motor Company Fund and Denso. They allow us to bring Echo Live to you every weekday for free while we are closed to the public. We are on episode, I want to say 57, I think, today, which is crazy. That's a lot of episodes. And I know some of you have been here for all of them. We hope you continue tuning in and that we'll even see you back here tomorrow for our last episode of Echo Live this week. Speaking of Earth Day, tomorrow is another kind of special event in the scientific community, in the worldwide science community. And tomorrow is actually World Environment Day. So you can never have too much Earth Day, in my opinion. It's something very similar. So we'll be talking about World Environment Day tomorrow here on Echo Live and how we can be good citizens of planet Earth, because as we said, there is only one Earth. And when we look at it in scale or in terms of our entire universe, right, we need to protect the one tiny piece that we get to call home. All right, Paulette, I don't see any questions coming in just yet. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys do continue to have questions, Paulette will keep an eye on the comments, and we will see Paulette back here very, very soon. Otherwise, we hope we all see you back here tomorrow and have a great rest of